Well, hello everyone, and thank you for joining us again for another episode of Leadership for the Now. My name is Florin Lungu, and I'm so delighted to be with you today. And today I'm joined by the wonderful guest, Asser Mortensen. Welcome, Asser.
Thank you so much.
How are you doing today?
Oh, wonderful, wonderful.
Yeah, great to have you. So, for someone that doesn't know you, would you want to introduce yourself a little bit and tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure, I will be delighted to. So my name is Asa. I am owner and director of InterCollege. I have been running InterCollege since 2011. And InterCollege is a social enterprise where we are working with, we'll say, build bridge between organizations in Denmark and in the rest of the world, helping our partners to go out and develop different kind of projects where they see internationalization as a solution and a way to make things better for themselves internally and towards their end beneficiaries.
Wow, so you're doing such important work, especially with international talent. So, because you have access and you discuss with your clients and you also recruit international talent yourself, tell us a little bit about what do you see being some challenges that organizations face in today's world with the talent internationalization?
I mean, it's a difficult question because I don't believe there are two organizations that are completely alike. And therefore, when we talk about models for solutions, there is no one size fits all solution. I think that a problem that I see for many partners that we are working with, that is that the organizations are very homogeneous in their composition of staff. It is easier to work with a homogeneous group where you do not have to think about cultural differences in communication and so on. It's easier just to work with people that looks like yourself. And that's a challenge. That's a major challenge for those companies because if the organization is too homogeneous, it's also difficult to attract and utilize the strength of people coming from outside.
Wow, that's so important, and I see the same thing. I work with organizations based in the Nordics, so Denmark and Sweden, and many times we know that diversity and inclusion it's important, but then when we have a choice to recruit someone that has maybe a Danish or a Swedish name and someone that doesn't have one, and we don't know the culture. Like I'm from Romania, right? And they are things that people don't know about Romanian culture. And I know you're from Moldova, right? Or at least you have connections.
I'm not from Moldova, but it's correctly that I'm beside of my work having a function as consul of Republic of Moldova to the Kingdom of Denmark. So yes, I have worked a lot with the Republic of Moldova, but also with Romania. And by the way, speak Romanian also. So yes.
So you bring awareness to organizations about our culture, right? And this requires energy and work from the organization side, right, to understand the cultures that where potential talent is. So from my perspective, I think what you're sharing, it's also what we're seeing. So if someone then understands the importance of attracting international talents and also does the work, like what opportunities do you see for organizations that are good at that?
But let me just, I want to roll back a little bit because
Sure.
I mean, I think this barrier to attract foreign labor and this barrier to kind of recruit internationally, it's often based on absolutely false assumptions. I mean, sometimes I'm meeting partners or companies where we talk about this internationalization, and let's say a IT company that is sitting and complaining that, oh, we have tried to recruit now for 5 years, and we always just get, if any, we just get 2 applicants that are not what we're looking for. And when I'm trying to ask them, where are you advertising this vacancy? It always shows up that's in some local media or national platform and so on. And I ask them, but have you thought about looking in Bucharest? And they would go like, nah, it's they don't speak the same language as we do. And I said, well, what? I mean, you speak C plus, you speak C plus plus, you speak Java. I mean, I just speak Danish. I mean, you guys understand each other. It's us who doesn't understand each other. And they say, yeah, but it's not the problem because anyway, our company language might be English, or no, it's in the work there. You don't need too much communication internal in the office. It's okay, but what is the problem then? And then those excuses, as I want to call them, start, right? It's like, oh yeah, well, we have our annual Christmas lunch where we have a satiric play, and how would they ever understand that? Or wouldn't they feel lonely in the cantina over the lunch break? And it was like, if this is the biggest problem, don't you think we can overcome it? And we also see that's happening, because then when they get an intern from, let's say, Romania, yeah, maybe the first 2-3 lunches are a little bit tough, but after a week, this young intern will start to play badminton with the marketing director, and he will go out every Friday evening to the bar, to the disco with the Danish intern. And after 2 weeks, nobody noticed that he's from Romania anymore. So this kind of differentiation between the international workers and the national workers very fastly disappear. So I think that the barrier for starting to use international workforce and to use international talents, that's often mentally for the business owners, and it's a imagined barrier that is not really existing. But sorry, I think actually I forgot
No,
about your
no,
question.
that's so true. That's so true. And let's build on that a little bit, because a few episodes back we had a guest that shared with us that if the talent of, because we talk about this talent shortage, right? This
Hmm.
is a common theme, and I see a challenge today. And she shared with us that, well, it might be a talent shortage if the pool that you're recruiting from is very narrow, which means that you want the person to be a national, right? Maybe Swedish, Danish, doesn't matter which
Hmm.
country. And you
Hmm.
want someone to be local. You want someone to be maybe graduating from this just a few universities that you trust, right? You want them to speak the language, and you want them all of these requirements. And of course, the talent pool is very, very small when you have all of these requirements. And I think what you're just saying, these requirements are made, almost artificial, right? Because it's much more comfortable for us to connect and discuss and lead people like ourselves, and it's much easier. We don't have to think about all of those cultural differences you're just mentioning. So
And I think one of the things that we had to go through, and we have been through, is also exactly this with the language, because it's correct. It's very practical to have Danish language when you are working in a Danish company, because from time to time we need to call the phone company and say, well, we have a problem with our lines, or the internet company. Or from time to time we do have to call down and order some lunch for a meeting, or we have to call somebody to order a meeting place, and then sorry, that can be a really good idea to speak Danish. But when we try to count up how many hours are the Danish language actually essential, it's very few hours. And it doesn't require a lot of reorganization. Say, okay, if we have a situation where you absolutely need Danish, or where it's better to speak Danish, then we have a Danish speaking colleague. And in some times of the history of the company, that Danish speaking colleague has been me. And that also means that maybe it's not per definition the director's job to call the internet company to say, now we again have trouble with the speed, but that I have been taking upon me. And over the years, I mean, I can see that it's a very insignificant amount of hours that we actually need Danish language, and I can easily take that upon myself or give it to a Danish speaking colleague, because we get so much else and so much other things when we take the international talents.
absolutely. So think about holding on just to that Danish requirement, and not getting all the opportunities that international talents bring.
Exactly, because you maybe in average will need 5 minutes of Danish speaker per week.
Yeah, exactly. And my experience, because now we live in Denmark here, and I don't speak the language. I speak Swedish, but it's not the same language. So my experience is that you can get along also with English if you need to order food or call the internet company. It would be a little bit
Absolutely.
slower, but you can get along with that too. So
Absolutely.
you might not even need to have those calls.
Absolutely. I mean, I have colleagues that have been working with me for several years, and still are very on a very basic level in Danish, and they have lived their life here, and they have done a career here without speaking Danish. So yes, I also don't see it as a central issue.
So now the question that I asked earlier, and maybe we can touch a little bit on that. So what opportunities do you see now for organizations that understand what we're talking about and they actually attract international talents and maybe lower kind of those entry barriers?
Yeah, I will say it's difficult to answer generical. I mean, it's difficult to say what is in it for any organization. I rather want to say what has been in it for me and what has been in it for my company. And I think that's easier to answer because like we have very different situations and the benefits can be very different. I would say for me, first of all, it's a question about getting a more heterogeneous environment. People coming with different ways of thinking, and therefore also different inputs to our development. And that's I know that's kind of fluffy to sit and say, but if I should try to drag it into some very concrete things, is that we also, I mean, we're working mainly with different EU funded projects, and that means that we are entirely dependent on having those international relations and having relations with organizations all over Europe. And there is really useful that if I am to work with a Spanish partner and I have a Spanish partner that is crucial for a project, that I have a Spanish speaking person, but I also have a person that understand the Spanish culture. When should I call? When should I not call? How should I present the ideas? If something I'm unhappy with, how do I then present that so they understand it and they do something with it, rather than my Danish maybe too direct way of presenting unsatisfaction, right? That can sometimes lead to conflicts. So in that way, I have had a cultural interview to a lot of countries in Europe that I wouldn't have, and and then we can go down to also a very low practical thing because uh, often we also need somehow context to somebody, and maybe my German speaker in the office is not fit for doing translation to German language of some kind of publication we have. But that German contact might know somebody who knows somebody through their universities or through their high school back in Germany and so on. So by having all those internationals in my office, my network has been 20 or 100 times bigger than many other companies that would hire just the local people. Because if I would have stayed with just staff from Northern Jutland here, I mean, their network would have been the same as the network that I already have, or that my friends have, or so on. But I have access to a way larger network. And what is that useful for? That's very difficult to say before you sit in the situation. And
Right.
and, and just a last thing you can say, and again, it's a very very low practical thing, but like for example, when we have a different kind of projects and we lead on different kind of projects, it's also our job to kind of monitor the partners abroad and monitor the quality of what they're doing, and also sometimes look into the financial situation, receive some receipts back, and say, well, this is an eligible cost, this is not an eligible cost. And it can be a challenge to receive 100 receipts from a partner in Bulgaria when you have no clue about what's actually written there. But then we also often find ourselves in a situation that yes, we do have a Bulgarian speaker, or if we do not have a Bulgarian speaker, some of the internationals are part of the international environment in Aalborg and can invite a Bulgarian friend for a cup of coffee and just translate those 5 receipts that we are doubting on. So we have a possibility to do a lot of things that competitors or people who don't take the international talents in, that they don't have.
Wow, and that's so good. Thank you for sharing that. And I think hearing your story and example, it makes a lot of sense, and I think it makes a lot of sense for our viewers as well, because you have a very international work, like you work with EU projects, right?
Yes,
You
yes,
work
yes.
cross borders, and I think one of the challenge or quote unquote excuses that other organizations have is like, well, if I'm a local organization, why should I have international talent? Like,
Yeah.
what's your view on that?
Yeah, well, but I'm struggling to see the example of that very local organization, and because, like, what is a local organization? The society is by now so internationalized that I really have difficulties. I'm struggling to see the example of the company type that doesn't have an international touch, and then you might say, well, the local bakery is, yeah, but the local bakery is also selling to the internationals in the city. The local bakery is also receiving their raw materials with the Romanian driver that comes at 3 o'clock in the morning and drop it off, and needed to speak with him and say, please do not put it out in the rain, please put it inside, or whatever it can be. So I'm really struggling to see the example of this very local company that we kind of imagine.
You're making such a good point. I don't think there is one, but many organizations see themselves like that way, and they use this as an excuse. And the moment you have international clients, the moment you sell something that it goes, beyond the borders of your region or your country, you already are an international organization, and you should be, having input and from those clients or people that understand those clients. So you're absolutely right. I don't think there is such organization, even the bakery, but some organizations see themselves that way, and they sometimes there is a pride, because think about the internationalization of supply chains, and
Mm,
now like made in Denmark or made in Sweden, it's really, it's perceived as a higher value than something that we used to make in China or somewhere else. So I think those organizations which use the history and the geographic localization as maybe their one of their unique selling points, they might be more not too open actually to international talent,
yeah.
which I don't think is right, but right.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I cannot see why it would make your product less Danish that you have a German talent to help you to develop it. I mean, and you talk about the need of organizations that have international customers, yes, but it's also the international suppliers. And again, here, I mean, throughout the history of my company, I have also had these situations where I'm gonna purchase something. I mean, last example, we have been part of developing a board game for educational purposes, right? And going out and trying to find some quotes on producing these board games. That's, by the way, a terrible expensive thing, and there is a huge difference on what you can actually get a price. And for me, it has been a huge asset that I had somebody in my company that could say, all right, I see the prices here, they are ridiculous. Let's try to look in Germany, see if we can find a better quote from there, or let's look in Romania and see if somebody can give us a good offer from there. That has lowered the prices, the supply prices for me, and have been a direct measurable advance by having those internationals.
Absolutely. That's so good. So if we will summarize a little bit what we just shared in kind of up until now, like in three things, like three simple things that someone that understands they need to bring in more international talent, where should they start? Like what would be like your first three steps if someone wants to start on that journey?
I don't know. I think there's no free steps. There's one step. Do it. Because I think it's a misconception that in order to attract international colleagues, you have to do A, B, C, D, and you have to go through a program and so on. You have to make sure, of course, that your organization is with you, and that is managerially founded this wish to attract internationals. Um, you have also to make sure that the whole organization understand that, well, that now it's okay to sit and speak English in the lunch break, and now it's okay to write a mail to a colleague in English. Um, but when that's done, then it's just to get started, because my experience is that things are solving. I mean, things are maybe tough the first couple of days, maybe the first couple of weeks, but then slowly things are finding the way. And then also to acknowledge that this international is not the one who's taking up the phone and making a phone call in Danish. And let's face it, because then I also see employers or companies that say, well, we will give them an intensive Danish course, and after 3 weeks they will be good in Danish. No. I mean, Danish is a tough language to learn, and especially if you want to learn it until the standard, so the Danish people are not going, what did you say? Sorry. And it is a difficult language to learn. So those colleagues are not going to be fluent in Danish anytime soon, and they don't need to. Accept it and just accept that, well, a part of our work is have to run in English then.
Yeah, and you make such a great point. So you said there are no steps, but I kind of got some steps in what you just shared. Because the first one you said, like, first of all, as organization, we have to decide that we want to attract. And I think the most important is to know why. Because many times we just jump on a trend, which is, for example, now diversity and inclusion. You cannot say that you do not want a diverse team, but many organizations have not answered the question, why is this important to us? So then when it comes to implementation, it's becoming more difficult because you don't know the why. So I think you just made a really good point. So as an organization, you have to decide, do you want to do it, and say why. And then secondly, to get the buy-in from the teams, right? And saying, this is what we're going to do, and understand that maybe we're going to have to speak English, and that's okay. It's an effort that we do it for the organization, right? And the third one was like, just do it now, because you know why you want to do it.
Yeah, exactly. And I think this about speaking English, I mean, I think it's imaginary obstacle, because if you look out in the companies, if you look out in the organizations, many of the people there, they're actually happy to practice their English. I mean, many Danish people are very happy to practice. And I guess that you must have seen it yourself when you like try to go to the supermarket and order something, and the cashier or the shop assistant see that you have a slight bit of accent, and then they swap into English, partially because it's easier and partially also because they're excited to have opportunity to practice their English, right? So I think this is not, but this about why the companies should do it. I mean, most of the companies that I meet, they are crying that there is a lack of talents, and there is a lack of, like, the talent pool is simply too small. And I think that in itself is enough to go out and recruit talents internationally. And I have said it before, and I know that somebody have been roasting me for saying it, but I'm happy to repeat it. I believe that those companies who do not take this opportunity to attract international talents, when they're sitting in a situation where they have a deficit of labor, if they do not use the opportunity to attract international talents, they're going to die out. That's going to be some old dinosaurs that will be history in a few years.
Yeah, and I so believe that. 100%. I so believe that. Thank you so much for sharing, Aster. So I usually ask a couple of more personal questions, if you like, at the end of our interview. So maybe would you want to share with us what was the best leadership advice you ever got, and how did that help you?
I would say it's really a difficult question, because I have a little bit tough time with those leadership advisors or leadership schools and so on. I mean, most of those theories and tips and tricks and so on I have been reading. It's either that well that makes sense, that has been obvious for me all the time, or it's like yeah, how can I use that? So I think that's difficult also, because leadership is not like something like generic or something that you can just. I mean, leadership is about adapting to the situation, looking at the people that you are facing, and finding a way to motivate and engage them. So they feel that they are doing something good and they're doing something positive and that they are building monuments. And yeah, but I can say that if I should highlight one training I have done,
or maybe just remove the word leadership. What is the best advice you ever got? It doesn't have to be leadership advice.
The best advice is try it out. I mean, and that's in anything. I mean, I have done thousands of failures in my business, and all of them have given me something. So try it out. No, I don't know. I mean, it's difficult to give the universal advice that is the best advice overall.
No, something that has helped you, and something that you got as an advice from someone else. I'm not asking you to give something that will help the world, but more like, if there was a moment in your life or in your career where you have seen a shift, or someone has made you aware of something or gave you an advice that has helped you, you know uh, be who you are today. That's, sometimes a really nice insight in someone's experience, and that's what I'm looking for. So not something generic for others, but more of something from your experience.
No, I cannot really come up with anything. I mean, I think when I started InterCollege, I was terrible scared. Let me just say it right away. I was just leaving a work that I had for the municipality in Jammerbugt, and said, now I want to start up myself, and I was completely scared. I was scared of failure. I was scared how would the neighbors and the surroundings look at me if I would go bankrupt, or if I wouldn't manage, or something like that. And my previous boss that I started up InterCollege with originally, he kind of ignored all those excuses that I had. Oh, I don't know about bookkeeping, I don't know about marketing, and so on. And he just kept on saying one thing: sign here. He already pre-filled the form for starting InterCollege, and he said, you just have to sign here. And I think it was the best thing I ever did. That was to sign that document and start my own company, and get self-employed. Um, and so I think that the best thing somebody have done for me in my career, that has been to absolutely disregard all the fears and the worries that I had.
Right. Wow, that's so good. That's so valuable. And I can see how that will help you, because sometimes, or many times, these fears are just imaginated fears. They're not real fears. And it's just because we have not done it up until now. Well, we feel that this is impossible. And think about, if we look backwards at our journeys, how many things that we thought are impossible are we doing now?
Yes, exactly.
Absolutely. This has been wonderful. Thank you so much for making the time, Aser.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much for watching. Everyone watching, we look forward to be back with you next week with another guest. Thank you for tuning in. Take care. Bye bye.